You recognize this? You don't see many of these anymore. It's the old $1 coin. We have President Kennedy on the head. This coin came out in 1976 during the bicentennial, so we have Independence Hall on the tail. Sometimes when I have to make a decision and I'm not quite certain which way to go, I pull out the old coin, polish it up, give it a toss, and heads I go one way, tails I go the other. Admittedly, that is not the best way to be making business decisions, and more often than not, the heads and tails approach lands me in a lot of trouble. I get a knock in the head and a kick in the tail. On today's show, we're going to be taking a somewhat more coherent and cogent approach to making business decisions. We're going to be meeting a real estate broker who decided to start a new company with a very, very different business model. But first up, we're going to be talking about apps. Because everybody has apps nowadays. There are apps for playing games, apps for watching movies, apps for ordering food from the favorite takeout place, and apps for downloading exercise programs to take off the weight from the food you ordered from the takeout place. But if you're running a mortgage business, do you need an app? And if you do, what kind of an app should you have? As luck would have it, one of my dear friends is Bruce Seymour. He's managing partner of MEA Mobile out of New Haven, Connecticut. He's an app developer, has done a lot of clever stuff, and decided to ask him, what is the best way for a mortgage company to approach creating its own app?
So you want your app to have a very focused purpose.
Okay.
So the question you have to ask yourself is, what do you want your app to do? And that needs to have, it needs to have a function, it needs to be useful for the relevant target market. And so in real estate, that might be listing features, it might be map capabilities. You might want to leverage some technologies such as push notifications that would enable your clients to learn about maybe new listings or new events. So what is your target market, and what do you want them to do with this app? What's the purpose of this app? So for real estate, it's what are the key features? Make sure that you keep it very, very focused, and people, you want to make it easy for people to get into the app, do what they need to do, and get out. So if it's listings, they press the key, the app automatically knows where they are, and it shows you listings that are relevant to you.
Well, there are different types of apps. So there's a native app and there's the website-based app. What are the difference between the two?
Sure, that's a really good question. So a native app uses technologies from the handset manufacturer. And so Apple is an example of a handset manufacturer, and they've released a set of tools that developers can use to create applications for that device. An HTML5 app or non-native app, because it uses web technologies, the site can be viewed from any mobile device, whereas a native app can only be viewed on the device that it was developed for.
Well, Bruce, you're obviously in the business of developing apps, but does it make sense for a company to make its own app in-house, and when does it have to realize that maybe you need to bring in the experts and outsource the project?
Sure. Well, obviously, being in the contract services business, we're a true believer that the best value is in outsourcing. When you're a company and you're not a large brand name like Google or Facebook or Yahoo, it's very, very difficult to recruit good programmers. And so when you're developing an app, it's not a one-person effort. You can't just hire one programmer and think that you're going to, in 3 months, come out with this revolutionary breakthrough app. We have teams of 6 people working on a single project at a time. And that's multiple coders, graphic designers, and project managers. So it's a real collaborative effort to get something out correctly. And so what we provide is a way to mitigate that cost for small businesses. For a small business to hire a 6-person team for 6 months to develop an app, it's just not cost effective. And then what do you do with that team after your app is developed? it doesn't make sense.
Well, of course, once the app is created, how do you market it? How do you let the world know, hey, my app is ready to be used?
Right. That's one of the most exciting things about the app ecosystem. Never before in the history of the world have you been able to distribute your product so easily and seamlessly across the entire planet. And so companies like Apple and Google have created these app marketplaces where you develop your app, you upload it to their systems, and within hours it's available to millions of users across the globe. It is absolutely fantastic.
Well, the interesting thing about apps, too, is that there are monetizing capabilities to it. You can bring in advertisements from other companies. For example, if you're listing in a certain area, you can have a moving company advertise, or a local hardware store, or even restaurants in the area as well. That's right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's never been easier to monetize apps. Today, instead of having to go out and develop an app and then find parties that want to advertise in your app, there are third-party ad networks where you can, within minutes, sign up, and your app will automatically be populated with ads from that network. When users click on it, you get paid. It's a very, very exciting monetization model, and it's never been easier.
Now in our next segment of the show, I'd like to introduce you to Gina Jacobs. She runs an independently owned and operated real estate brokerage out of Woodbury, Connecticut. She started her business earlier this year, but her business is very, very different from her competitors in one key area. How is she doing this? What is she doing? What are her results? Well, Gina was nice enough to take some time from her busy schedule to meet with us and discuss her approach to real estate. Let's listen to what she has to say. So, Gina Jacobs, what inspired you to start your own business?
Well, I had a different plan in mind, Phil. I wanted to be able to offer people real estate services but not charge the traditional commission. I charge for my time. It's more like consulting services as opposed to the traditional 5-6% commission that most people are used to paying.
But that's totally radical from what people in the real estate world do. What inspired you to come up with that idea?
I was spending a lot of time trying to sell houses for people that were, in most cases, either overpriced. The sellers sometimes get over emotional, and I was spinning my wheels and not getting to the closing table. So I thought there has to be a better way for me, and as it turns out, it's a better way for the seller. They save a ton of money because they're not paying 5 or 6%. They're just paying for my time. And that, when you compare apples to apples, it turns out to be a lot less money for them.
Are there other real estate agents in the state of Connecticut doing the same type of business model you're doing?
As far as I know, nobody else is doing this, so I'm kind of venturing out there and testing the waters. And so far, so good.
When did you start your business?
January of this year.
Okay. And when clients come to you and you explain how your business model works, how do they react?
They're skeptical. They have a lot of questions because it's different. A lot of them don't realize that the way we've always done real estate is not set by law. You can negotiate. It doesn't have to be a percentage or a commission as it's always been. So after I answer all their questions and show them the numbers on paper, they're pretty much sold. I haven't had anyone walk away and not be impressed with the savings.
How do other real estate professionals in the state react when they hear about what you're doing?
They're skeptical too, but they see the value. It doesn't really affect them because what I usually tell sellers is even though you're going to pay me for my time, you should still offer out a buyer's agent commission because that is how the rest of the world is getting compensated. So I think as long as those other agents are being paid, as they always have been, they're happy. They're still going to sell my listings if they have the appropriate buyers. So it's a win-win for everybody.
Your company is independently owned and operated, and you're competing against a lot of major franchises in this market. How do you get to stand out from the competition?
What I'm doing makes me stand out. that in itself, the big brokerages can't offer what I'm offering. They have too much overhead. So if it works for me, I imagine other agencies, small agencies, will pop up and do the same thing, but your heavy hitters will never be able to offer what I'm offering.
You've worked for some of these heavy hitters in the past. What's the difference between working for the big guys and being your own boss?
There's a big difference. Paycheck for starters, but the ability to do what I'm doing and be creative in what I'm offering people. You're under tight guidelines when you're working for another broker in one of these big companies.
In this economy, I'm not aware of a lot of entrepreneurial startups. Are you seeing other brokers going out on their own, starting their own businesses?
Actually am. I think with the market being what it is, a lot of the agents realized they couldn't make enough money giving half their commission check to their broker. So I do see a lot of LLCs popping up, but so far I'm the only one offering consulting by the hour as opposed to commission.
You were featured in a major daily newspaper here in the state earlier this year. What kind of feedback did you get from being profiled in the press?
Tremendous. The phone still rings, and that article ran about 5 or 6 months ago. People are starting to realize there's a better way to do real estate. They've called me, they asked their questions. Some of them have held on to that article for months, and then when they were ready to sell, said, I'm calling Gina Jacobs to see what she has to offer. So it's been a great source of business.
Well, outside of being in the newspaper, how are you marketing your business?
Doing a lot of mailings, trying to get the people that are expiring off the market unsold to show them that the savings I offer them, they can in turn lower their price and still net the same amount. Referrals, of course, if I can make one person happy, they'll tell somebody else. So I'm dabbling in a lot of different areas trying to attract business any way I can.
In your professional opinion, how can mortgage brokers have better relations with real estate agents like yourself?
I've had quite a few approach me in hopes of getting business, obviously. I don't think they have such tight guidelines right now. If the banks and the lenders don't ease up a little bit, they're going to suffocate this whole market. I think people who still have decent jobs and decent credit need to be able to get loans. And not that the brokers are completely in control of that, but the banks themselves need to let it breathe a little bit and start lending money again to get this economy and the market moving.
And overall, what is your feeling of the housing market, both on a national scale and as well as the region that you serve?
I think Connecticut is lagging in the country. I know Florida, Massachusetts, other states seem to have picked up, whereas we are still in this area slow. I think Fairfield County is doing better than the rest of the state. It is taking the rest of us a little bit longer to get up to speed with where the national averages are.
Last question I would have, if a young person just getting out of college wanted to get a job in real estate, either as a real estate agent or a mortgage broker, what advice would you give them?
Well, I would say you've got to do something to make yourself stand out. There's a million agents out there. Everybody's doing the same thing. I decided to offer something that nobody else had to make myself stand out. So if you're going to get into this business, you better dazzle the public or else your phone's not going to ring.
Well, here's hoping your phone keeps ringing and ringing.
Yes, yes.
Thank you, Gina Jacobs.
Thank you.
You may not know this, but when I'm not doing work within the mortgage and real estate industries, I'm a horror movie actor. Seriously. I like to share some of my movies with you. This is My Mouth Lies Screaming. In this one I played a mad scientist who reattaches a severed head. This is a film called Abduction. In this one I played a pharmacist who provides the drugs to a ring of slave traders who abduct beautiful young women and sell them into sexual slavery. This one is called Rudyard Kipling's Mark of the Beast. In this one I play a broken down old drunk who gets possessed by a demonic spirit, and the exorcist has to be called in to get the spirit out of me. Wasn't pretty. This one is called Burial Boys, and in this one I play a nasty elementary school principal who winds up in a mortuary of horrors. As you can imagine, a lot of these films will not be seen at the next Academy Awards presentation, but that's not to say I haven't been honored for my work in horror movies. I won the 2008 B-Movie Film Festival Best Supporting Actor Award for playing Professor Shipwreck in Bikini Bloodbath Car Wash. Yes, there is such a movie. That's kind of scary into itself. Why am I telling you about this? Well, when it comes to making business decisions, I don't think you need to go to business school to get an MBA or go to any special course for advanced training. All you need to do is watch horror movies, because you can learn so much from watching these wonderfully warped creations. Because every horror movie, when you stop to think about it, is predicated on making bad decisions. I mean, for example, if people didn't go into the haunted house, they wouldn't be killed. If people didn't disrupt the mummy's tomb or walk down deserted streets in a neighborhood where there's a serial killer, or hang out with weird people that will kidnap them and sell them into sexual slavery, like we had in Abduction. It's all about making the right decisions, about stopping and thinking, like, wait a minute, maybe I shouldn't go into that haunted house. Maybe we should just leave the mummy's tomb alone. Maybe we should not try to track down the serial killer on our own. Call the cops. The housing bubble was the creation of very bad decisions. They were making decisions back then which were worse than anything you'd see in a horror movie, like, oh, no doc loans, wonderful idea. Let's give a jumbo mortgage to people making minimum wage. Why should we emphasize quality? We should be emphasizing quantity. You know what happened after that? So my advice is basically take a tip from the folks in the horror movies and do the exact opposite. In horror movies where, say, Rudyard Kipling's Mark of the Beast, I decide to desecrate a pagan temple, and I wind up being possessed by the spirit of a nasty demon. Now, if I had stopped and said to myself, "Self, don't desecrate that pagan temple," then my character would not have been possessed by the demon. Of course, we wouldn't have had a movie, but that's another story. In your mortgage business, stop and say to yourself, you know, are we doing the right thing? Are we making decisions that were carefully thought out? Now, there's nothing wrong with taking a business risk, provided it's an intelligent risk and you do your due diligence. For example, if you want to expand into a new line of business, like reverse mortgages or energy-efficient mortgages, nothing wrong with that, as long as you stop and study the situation, have a report. I know it's a bit of a cliche to have a committee meeting, but think things through. Make the right decision. Time is your ally. You don't need to be rushing into things. That's the worst thing when it comes to making a business choice, let alone making a choice in a horror movie. Don't go rushing in because it seems like the right thing to do. Don't go taking a risk because, well, you can get rich quick from doing the risk. Stop and think. Time is your ally. And the more thought that goes into your business decisions, ultimately the better it will be for you. And take it from somebody who's been killed in plenty of horror movies. If my characters actually use their brains, I'd be alive at the end of the movie. Well, fortunately, I'm alive at the end of this show, so I want to thank you for sharing your time with us, and we hope to see you again very soon. Look us up online at mortgagenewsnetwork.com. I'm Phil Hall. Peace out.
The Housing Show airs every Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time and can be viewed exclusively on MortgageNewsNetwork.com. Thanks for watching us here on Mortgage News Network. You know, you could be part of the action here. If you have a product or service for mortgage professionals, you can be a sponsor and have your commercial here on Mortgage News Network. And if you don't have a commercial, that's okay. We have plenty of clever and creative folks behind the camera who can make a commercial for you. For more information, please send an email to info@mortgagenewsnetwork.com. Or for immediate info, please call Beverly Bolnick, our National Sales Manager, at 516-409-5555, extension 4. And she'll tell you how you can be part of the action.
This is Mortgage News Network.